Have you been hearing a lot about trauma lately? And that has been pretty hot subject lately, trauma. And so much so, a lot around the movie called The Wisdom of Trauma. And there's a website that has all about it, The Wisdom of Trauma. And they also have an ebook that goes through the description of what that is, because I think it's really confusing. We think of trauma as, oh, that's like if you go to war or there's some really big thing that's happened to you that lingers on and is affecting you currently. Well, that's only partially part of it. And, why should it even matter to us as normal public citizen about trauma? Well, we've been through a big trauma. We probably don't call it that, but the pandemic was quite a trauma for the world. So we're looking through the eyes of a trauma induced situation worldwide, not just personally, not just within our community, not even just nationally. Nationally, it's worldwide. Okay, so that's one reason to now be more interested in trauma. But another reason is that we are really, as a society, progressing in our consciousness. We're raising our awareness and our sensitivities. Now, if you want to stay back over there on the farm or wherever, nothing against farmers, God bless y'all, I'd love to live on a farm. But what I mean by is if you are not wanting to move into a new understanding and awareness that will elevate us all. Even if you're not interested in elevating everybody, you elevate yourself. All right, so trauma, what is it and how does it work? One of the things that we can look at, and let me see if I can go over here and wanted to show you this in particular. It has one of the descriptions of trauma. So what this is the trauma ebook, and it's from the Wisdom of Trauma website, where there is a whole movie about what trauma is, how it affects us, and all of the inner workings. And there's a particular expert that hosts this trauma, who's been working with trauma his whole life. So trauma definition: trauma is a psychic wound that hardens your psychological and then interferes with your ability to grow and develop. So it interferes with you, it hardens you psychologically, and it interferes with your ability to grow and develop. It pains you, and now you're acting out of pain. I think that is a real fundamental statement. It pains you, and now you're acting out of pain. Boy, have we been seeing a whole lot of that. You've heard about how crime is up right now, too. And, on the opposite side of pain is fear, and here it is. It indicates and it induces fear, and now you're acting out of fear. So not only are you in pain, you're acting out of pain, you're in fear, and you're acting out of fear. So trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. So you might have two people who went through the same experience and have two different outcomes. And that's what this speaks to, is that not everybody's experience is going to be the same, but we all need to have an awareness of what's called now, the modern term is trauma sensitive. We're moving into a society, we'll be asked to make decisions on things that influence our past histories of trauma. Think about it. Think about it. Society, here in the US, slavery is a huge one. And anything to do with that had any sort of effect on a person, it could be through their genetics, it could be through their society, it could be for them individually. And homelessness is I bet you if you looked very deeply into the source of each individual, there's going to be some trauma in their life. We are asked to make decisions on those things, so we need to become trauma aware. Trauma it's that scary thing that makes you less flexible, more rigid, less feeling, and more defended. And this is the host of the trauma film, Gabor Mate. Not this picture of this woman, but he's a man. So trauma is an inability to inhabit one's body without being possessed by its defenses and the emotional numbing that shuts down all experiences, including pleasure and satisfaction. So trauma-sensitive people have an awareness of what some of these things show up as. So trauma can be anything that happens too much, too fast, too soon, too long, coupled with not enough of what should have been happening that was resourcing. So what should have been happening that was beneficial, basically. So there it is. I wanted to just introduce those ideas to you to start thinking about being a trauma-conscious individual, because you're going to be asked to make decisions that depend upon that back knowledge. If you work with anybody in the public, anything from people in the stores that are working behind the scenes in the stores and interfacing people, to have an awareness of why people act the way they do would be beneficial even at that level. And all the way up to government needs to have an understanding. But in between, you've got school teachers, you've got people that work with networking even. Maybe you want to have some networking. How does that even affect trauma? Just think about it. Just think about all the different ways that people show up and how you interface them, and how underneath all of that, when you think there is something blocking or interfering with your connection with them in some way, it isn't always acting out. Sometimes it's just a shutting down or something that you can sense is there. Have an awareness that there could be some history of that. And the next step is, okay, what do you do with that? So I suggest that you watch the film, go to the website that's listed down here on the wisdomoftrauma.com. See when the filming is coming at the end of July and into early August, you'll be able to see the film again. And then they also have a speaking engagement of several different speakers lined up and experts on this subject. So there'll be conversations that you could hear about. So if you're suffering, you know somebody who's suffering, or you work with the public in any format, as well as a general citizen that's making decisions and having to live in this trauma-based world right now, good information to have to help you make your decisions.